in our series of Mother Earth, talking about all things related to how we think about, care about, and preserve our Earth. We're happy to be here today in conversation with Susan Fairchild. As just a reminder, Rebel 11 is an amazing community lifting women and helping people change the world. And we are here today with Susan Fairchild, and I'm going to share just a little bit about Susan. She is a cross-sector impact professional with experience working in the nonprofit, government, philanthropic, and business sectors. That's a lot. Through her career, she has been driven by purpose every step of the way. I love that. I love that when I meet individuals who are clear about their purpose and they go after it. And that was clear to me when I met Susan, and I'm happy to be in conversation with her today on that very topic. She is the Director of Investor Relationships and Impact at Green Canopy, a for-profit company working to transform the built environment by delivering high sustainable, healthy, and more affordable housing options in the Pacific Northwest. If you are not familiar with Green Canopy, I really encourage you to check them out. They are doing tremendous work and are just really great pioneers in work that needs to be done, not just in the Pacific Northwest, but everywhere. So with that, Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you to join us in conversation today about this important topic of passion-led life.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you everyone for joining today. It's such a pleasure I don't see everyone's faces, but hopefully you're sitting there. Anyways, I just wanted to thank you, Monica and Joni, for the invitation to talk about a purpose-driven life. Really, I just wanted to start with saying why I'm here. And it feels really hard to really go into all the details about the social and environmental crises before us, but I would say we all see it every day. We all know the little pieces and parts that are happening in our society, in our world. I also know that we've all been stuck at home for the last year. I know many people have considered, transitions out of their jobs into new jobs. And so there's so much at stake right now. And just being in my position, I would say there is a need for more women like yourselves in these movements. We need your leadership. We need your voices. It's really critical. And that's really one of the reasons why I am here today to talk about a purpose-driven life. I don't want this to be me talking about myself the entire time. That is not at all what I am interested in. So what I'm hoping really is to provide all of you tools for how to develop a purpose-driven life and to create alignment within your career, within your finances, and within your home. I realize a purpose-driven life can be integrated into many other aspects, but those are the three components that I wanted to talk about today. Just in terms of logistics, I think it would be really fabulous if everyone could really participate in the chat feature. That will at least allow us to create a much more interactive experience. And then also have something to write with, because I do have an intention of having you all do a little bit of self-reflection around what your purpose might be. So as Monica mentioned, I am a cross-sector impact professional. It's true. My career has not been a direct route. I have worked, starting out, worked in direct service, focused on the homeless adult population. I went overseas into the Peace Corps. I came back and worked through social venture partners and philanthropy for many, many years, and then made that transition into the for-profit sector. And I think if you look at my LinkedIn profile, many people, I laugh about it every time I talk about it. Many people will wonder, like, well, what is the pathway? What is the thread that weaves all these stories together? And I would say what it is purpose. Each of those roles has been very purpose-driven, and for me, in particular, it's been a focus on systems change. How do I leverage my skills and experiences such that I can create the change I want to see in the world? And it's just simply been a process for me. As Monica mentioned, just to give you a little bit more about Green Canopy, our mission is to build homes, relationships, and businesses that help regenerate communities and environments. We are building highly sustainable, all-electric, healthy homes in the urban walkable communities of Seattle and Portland. We also, this is something that I really enjoy, we also manage funds. So we align impact investors' capital with their values to really build a better future in Seattle and Portland. Just 4 things quick I wanted to share that I love about my job. One is that it keeps that alignment and it keeps that focus on systems change. I find that a lot of people aren't really quite aware of those interconnections between housing, the housing crisis, and the climate crisis. And interesting enough, kind of what it is that we're doing really sits at the intersection of those 2 aspects. For one, the built environment's responsible for 40% of our global carbon emissions. And what that means is really what we build, where we build, and how we build really matters. Simply because what we're building not only locks in carbon emissions for the next 80 to 120 years, but it also locks in social structures, leaving neighborhoods and communities either exclusive or inclusive. So there's really fascinating alignment within the housing sector. Secondly, I have found through my own personal trajectory that there's an opportunity to create improvement within the nonprofit sector, the philanthropic sector, the government sector, but I've really found that the for-profit sector, we've left a lot on the table for way too long. And so through Green Canopy, I really do believe that business can be a force for good. And I really, through our work, enjoy being able to try to make that point on a regular basis. Third, I mentioned before, working with investors and really empowering them alongside their capital and their values has been really powerful. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's really empowering once you realize you actually have power over your finances and how you spend and save. And then finally, I have to say what I love also, and I feel extremely fortunate about, is just being in a team environment where we are empowered, where we're values aligned, and where we're extremely passionate. Again, this will come into play in the conversations down the road. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I wanted to start with this. Monica invited me and Joni invited me to this session, and all I could think of was, why me? What on earth do I have to offer? And I realized it's a story we all tell ourselves. Sorry, I'm going to get this going. We all tell ourselves this way too often. And while my computer is slowly getting the slides up.
I can see the first slide, Susan.
Great, I'm trying to move to the third.
Oh.
Okay, this is the one that I want to read to you. This is a story that we women, I think, can sometimes tell ourselves, and I want to dispel that. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your plain small does not serve the world. So today I would like to provide an invitation to all of you, and that is really to live a life on purpose. We are headed into one of the most complex, inequitable decades in America. And we really, again, need you to live your purpose, whether that be in your career, your finance, your home, or other avenues that we don't get to today. I realize that you all have joined this call for different reasons. There are no right answers today. You may have, again, considered, this conversation because you're considering a career move. You might be considering how to integrate purpose into what it is that you're doing. You might even be a stay-at-home mom trying to find that sense of purpose within what you do. There are no, again, wrong answers at all. But what I'd love for you each to do is just spend, maybe a minute thinking about these 2 questions, which is, what made you curious enough to join today's Zoom conversation? And then what is the crossroad that you're faced with at this point in time? Again, feel free to share in the chat your thoughts, but I will pause it there for just a moment. Monica, I don't think I can actually see the chat. So if there are things that come up, you can feel free to read them.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know why I can't see this chat, but I can't.
You should be able to, you don't have chat on the bottom next to participants of your screen. There should be participants and then chat.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Joni wrote, I want to align my values with my work and lifestyle. And I was just writing, as I approach empty nest, I'm thinking about legacy. Sarah says, I would like to have more work-life balance. Sylvan says, retired, now what, besides hobbies?
I love that. Thank you. Feel free to keep on adding them along the way as we go throughout this process. So today, I don't know that I'm going to provide all the answers today for you, or that you're going to come up with all the answers in this next 45 minutes. But I wanted to do is just provide some tools for you to think about how to really clarify your purpose.
And Susan, I'm going to add just 2 more that I think are great.
Yeah.
Recently chose to leave a long career in tech and considering what to do in semi-retirement that has meaning, purpose. Lisa, I can really relate to that. And then Jen, looking to make a career change. So we have a good mixture of different interests.
Love it. I love it. I'm so excited for all of you. Okay, so today what I wanted to do is just provide you some frames to think about purpose in your career, your finance, your home. Again, great takeaways for after this call. I want you to actually spend a little time reflecting and clarifying your purpose. And we'll do that by looking at your values. We'll do that by considering your assets, what brings you joy, what you're passionate about. We'll actually craft a purpose statement. I will consider this a very rough draft for you all. And then finally, we'll explore a couple avenues for creating alignment between your purpose and then also your finances and your home. So ikigai, I don't know how many are familiar with this Japanese ideology that's been really long associated with the nation's long life expectancy. In Japanese, iki means life. Gai is used to really describe value or worth. And really, it's all about finding joy in life through purpose. Interestingly enough, I only found this a couple years ago, and it was like, oh, okay, this all makes so much sense. And it's really at the intersection of what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you're paid for, where you're really finding your purpose, your ikigai. And really, this is what's something that is going to help you get out of bed every morning and helps keep you going. I will say, just personally, over the last administration and this last year, especially, having purpose-driven work has helped me stay focused and has helped me keep going every day, just knowing the challenges that we're facing as a society and a planet. Purpose and money. This is a place where I think we forget how much power we have. We forget that how we spend our money, how we share our money, how we invest, and how we save actually really matters. And that, you don't have to have a lot of money to make it matter. So this is where I think we all shy away from. We forget how much we can do here, but I wanted to just give a couple insights. Simply in that, how we spend, we can really be thoughtful in who you buy from, what you buy. You can consider buying local. You consider buying from companies aligned to your purpose. You can consider buying through B Corp companies. Again, this is another frame to think about how to align purpose. Also sharing, perhaps many of you have your own organizations that you really enjoy sharing your money with through philanthropy. So you can also create alignment in your purpose statement to your giving plan. This is another place where you can do that. So rather than writing $20 checks here and there, you can actually think about what you care most about and create a plan that aligns to that purpose. And then on the invest to save component, we'll talk more about this in a later slide, but the question for you all to think about is, do you know what your money is doing while you're sleeping? Where you bank and how you invest is really important, again, for considering alignment with your purpose.
Susan, I have a question on, and maybe you'll get to this later, and if so, just tell me. But I think this is a great visual of the four quadrants, really, where you think about alignment, right? And it feels like, just like when you read food labels, it's easy to say, you know, something is healthy, right? So it's easy to say something is good for the environment. Are you going to talk about that later, about what to look for, or could you give a few antidotes now, based on words you might shy away from or dig deeper into if you see?
Well, oh gosh, it is so, there's so much work and effort, and there are so many experts who do a lot of work in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a couple things on the spending aspect. Zero Waste Home is a really great resource that I share in the resource guide. Bea Johnson, she provides a framework which is really focused on first refusing. So really considering, do you really need it? Secondly, I can't actually remember what the second one that she talks about is, but the real focus is on, you know, really considering what it is that you're buying. Do you even need it? Secondly, you know, buying for longevity. So really thinking about what it is that you are buying, and is that going to stay for a long time?
Okay, that's
And then
great.
also, I would say, you know, considering who you buy from. So buying local is another great avenue to really focus on. Yeah,
Thank you.
great question. And then just another framework to think about in relation to home. You know, really, we all have been spending the last year at our home. We know this now so much to be true, that the home is the nexus of our lives. It has been, you know, become even more so over the course of this last year. This is a great framework that I have found through the World Green Building Council to really think about health and well-being within your home. They look at it through the lens of built environment, but I think it's still very applicable. So for example, in the upper left, as it focuses on taking climate action, protecting the environment, you know, we can do things like focus on energy efficiency and sustainability within our homes to protect the environment. Looking at the health component, we can really think about protecting not only our health, but, you know, going back to what it is that we buy, we can also think about protecting the health of the workers who are putting together, either building the home, remodeling your home, or even the ones who are manufacturing the products that are going into your home. A lot of those more toxic products that are going into homes, you know, there are workers that have to put those together. So those are things to think about. We can also create a connection with nature by adding in some biophilic design. So there's a lot of just value in thinking about the many ways by which you can think about purpose. The last one actually that I wanted to mention is around the creating social value. This is such a tough one, given we're all stuck at home by ourselves. So there is an aspect around creating community here. Another avenue to think about is backyard cottages. Can you increase access to your neighborhood by, you know, renting out at affordable rates to another household? That's another way to think about it. So again, those three are just really frameworks to think about purpose, but really how to focus on the purpose is really to start by defining it. And I would say that purpose is really about why we do what we do. Values are what we believe in and how we behave. And so the values provide really the first moment and time by which we can help determine what our purpose is going to be. And so I just wanted to take a couple minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, for each of you to look through this list and jot down on your own or jot down in the chat 3 to 5 values that you want to carry out into the world. And again, these values are values that can help to shape the purpose that you want to create in the world. I will just share mine briefly with you, so at least you have some things to go on. it's so hard to choose. I ended up selecting authenticity, beauty, and I consider that actually to be natural beauty. And for me, that's in relation to nature, family, growth, and responsibility. So I will again just give you a moment to reflect on your own.
And Susan, I really love these because so many go hand in hand. Like beauty spoke to me as well. And then I also thought about openness, right? And really the benefit of living in the Pacific Northwest and to be in open spaces right now. And all of that even tying back into pleasure. We welcome you to put any thoughts of what come up for you in the chat as well.
I will just give a little bit more context that is that, for each job process that I've gone to for changing jobs, this has been a really invaluable process to just hit the reset button. It helps frame my philanthropy. It helps frame kind of how I spend my time.
And I think sometimes when we're stuck in that headspace of is what I'm even doing? Does it matter? Am I making an impact? What is my purpose? All of that. It's probably because we haven't taken the time to do a reset or a recheck on these values and to understand if our days and our moments are aligning with them, right? Because it's easy to say yes to everybody and be busy all the time, but really some of that power is in saying, but wait, how does this achieve X or Y or whatever is important to me?
I love that. Thanks, Monica.
And let's see a couple comments in the chat. Mine include authenticity as well, adventure, creativity, empowerment, humor, positivity. Beautiful, Joni. That reminds me of you, all of those. Sarah, mine are authenticity, efficiency, health, optimism, spirituality. Beautiful. Jen, reliability, beauty, learning, family, challenge. Emily, natural beauty, creativity, empathy, fun, thoughtfulness. Balance, fairness, cooperation, health, loyalty. I should put on my glasses. Responsibility, kindness, regeneration of the health of the planet and everything on everything and everyone on it. Oh, so many lovely comments. Thank you everyone for sharing. I love how often beauty is coming up too. Okay, Susan, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much. So again, this is your work. These are takeaways that you get to take away from here. So I love everyone's kind of unique experience and thoughts around their values. The next aspect of it, and again, this has been really helpful for me as I have gone through a variety of career hunts, job hunts, is just really thinking about in reflecting on your life and your work in the past. And so are there assets that you have, such as skills, expertise, networks that really seem like your special sauce, that really you just feel like you have such a unique lens on this that no one else has? Where and when have you felt joy or passion? And then finally, where have you felt flow? And if you're not familiar with flow is really when you are in such a groove with whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're outside gardening or you are in the conversation trying to sell something to a potential client, that eventually you look up and you discover how much time has flowed by or has passed by. This is an important aspect because this really creates that alignment between your ikigai. What really are you good at? What do you find joy in? You really want to find flow with what it is that your purpose is as well. If you're running conflict against purpose versus what you're good at, you're not finding flow. So find flow to get you there.
And Susan, I think this is so interesting too, because you and I both have some shared work experience in financial services, right? And so does Erin as well. And you know, it can be, depending on the work you're doing, sometimes it can feel soulless. And so the opposite of feeling in flow can be when you feel like, oh, I'm really spending a lot of time in work that doesn't feel aligned with my values or passion, and it feels soulless. And then sometimes that can also show up in your body. And so I think in addition to paying attention to flow, it's also paying attention to what's opposite of that and uncovering the why that is.
Mm-hmm.
And also with respect that, you know, people have to do work and earn a living, and, you know, that sometimes choices are more accessible than others, but it's about learning and self-reflection and understanding how to unpack those choices and where you have power, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Monica. If there are things in the chat that people want to share around this, they are more than welcome to. So creating your purpose statement, it's possible, it feels very premature to come all the way to creating a purpose statement within this short time frame. But really, thankfully, we already have that ikigai framework to think about. And we've, you know, maybe spent a couple minutes reflecting on our values. We spent a couple minutes thinking about what are we really good at? What is that special sauce? I know I really enjoy helping to educate and empower other people. I find I have so much joy in that because I know there's a trickle effect. But what about you? What is your purpose? And so thinking back to the ikigai, think about, what are you good at? What do you love? What does the world need? And then what can you be paid for? The last one is tricky. Sometimes we're in positions where we aren't being paid for, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're retired and you're now thinking about the what's next. Your skills and values are still so very needed. To give you just an example, to keep it extremely simple, my purpose is to help regenerate communities and environments. And I do that really through multiple ways, which I've talked about already.
But Susan, could you take us into that a little bit and share, I love the example, how that relates to things you're good at and what the world needs, and how you relate it back to those 4 exercises here.
Oh, that's great. So it's so interesting when I think about what this is so personal.
I know, I put you on the spot, aren't I?
What am I good at? You know, it's funny. So there's a word out there that Monica and I have laughed about quite a bit, and it's sales. And there is people really they either hate sales or they love sales, and most people hate sales and they run away from sales. I really love it. I actually think it's so much fun, and I happen to be good at it, but I don't come at it from the sales perspective. I come at it from an education and sharing perspective. So that is an example of something that I've kind of come to found that I'm good at and that I actually happen to love doing.
Susan, I have to pause you right there for 1 second because I have goosebumps. Joni and I talk about the word serendipity all the time, because Sarah had just put in the chat, which I know you can't see. I always thought you had to have a creative job to have flow and work. Now I think back to even certain sales conversations where I was definitely in the flow. So another example of really enjoying sales and feeling in the flow.
Mm.
So sorry, continue. I just had to share that.
And, I guess this is what does the world need? Oh my gosh, the world needs so much. The world needs so much. And so, when I really have thought about my trajectory and where I have been in the past, and I've really thought about those experiences and those skills, what I have found in my personal experience is that actually generalists are really needed. People who have had that experience across sectors is needed to help bring these different stories together. And so, I think regenerating communities environments can capture so much right now. For me, it's really focused on that housing lens. And I feel like because of this intersectionality of the housing crisis and the climate crisis all within, we need every player at the table, the nonprofit community, the philanthropic community, the for-profit sector community. And so I've just found myself at this nexus of experience, what the world needs, to be at the right spot where I just happen to be able to get paid for it too.
That is fantastic. I'm curious if anyone has a purpose statement in mind or draft that they want to share. We welcome the opportunity to see it if you feel inclined and to share it. Somebody also commented that even though I'm at a nonprofit, I value my day-to-day work and work environment is no longer aligned with my purpose. And so a great reflection, right? And it gives people time to think about what's next.
Mm. That's actually a great segue. So again, I'm sorry. I wish I could see everybody. I would love to see everybody's draft purposes actually, or I'd love to hear about them down the road. You've got my email at the very end of the slide. But again, this is again to provide frameworks to help you think about it. But as you go through the process, I'd love to hear where you all land. That actually, the last point that you raised, Monica, actually raises a really wonderful point, and that is about how to thrive in your purpose. So I'll give you an example is that, gosh, years ago, I spent a lot of time creating my own purpose and mission statement. And I had it so well articulated that I truly thought I was going to save the world. And I found a job that aligned perfectly with what it was that I was going to do. And I figured that's where I would be forever. And I could imagine my trajectory of what I was going to do. And it was fabulous. But I arrived at my place of employment and really arrived at something that I didn't expect. And that was a feeling of being disempowered. And I realized really at that point that, you really, to be able to thrive in your purpose, you have to either create or select conditions by which you really can thrive. So for me, what I think I have found is this interesting balance between creating your purpose and creating that flexibility such that the team matters so much, having the right and team environment where you can be empowered to thrive in that purpose is also really critical. Secondly, I just wanted to share a story because I think being a friend of yourself is also extremely important. Within Green Canopy, early when I started, I would spend time in the offices of financial advisors. And financial advisors have their MBAs and they speak a language that when I first joined Green Canopy, I did not fully understand or appreciate. And the experience made me feel small. And I remember questioning whether or not this even was the right place for me to be. And it was at that time that I went and spoke with a friend and I shared with her this experience. And she shared with me, Susan, your breadth of experience is different from the financial advisors, but extremely needed in this work that we're doing collectively. And really helped me understand that even though, a financial advisor might have one particular lens, actually mine is still valuable and important. And it was in that moment that actually I realized she was really being the friend to me that I needed to be to myself. So I invite all of you to just really think about that, of how do you become a friend also to yourself? And for me, that was just really, I put limitations on myself, thinking I didn't have an MBA, therefore I wasn't as much, which is actually really quite the opposite. Secondly, I want to just add that a lot of this work, purpose-driven work, it is hard. And it really, I think we all want change in the world, but the reality is that we can't force change upon others. We can really only create change within ourselves. So I just want to encourage you all to do the deep work, whether it be through therapy, mindfulness, meditation. There are so many different opportunities to do some of this work. I personally have done my own therapy over the years, and it's interesting, things from your childhood, how that can carry forward into your adult life, and how even just resolving some of that can really have an impact on your purpose. Finally, again, creating your support group in this last component, I think, is really important. Again, I mentioned that this work is hard. It isn't easy. Purpose-driven work is not easy, especially if you're trying to change paradigms or do things differently. You can feel alone. You can feel isolated. You can maybe oftentimes wonder, am I crazy, or am I just seeing this differently? And what I have found is that creating that support group and creating your community is extremely important, not just of a community of supporters, people who will advocate for you, your family, your friends, but then also people who will hold you accountable to what you have said you want to do. For me, what that has looked like is I have joined a monthly breakfast group of some other women who are highly impactful in their careers and kind of see the world through a similar lens as I do. And we are operating in spaces that don't always agree with our viewpoints and perspectives, but to really support each other in the work has been highly beneficial. And then another group that I am co-leading with another couple ladies is the Invest for Better cohort. And it's a 6-month cohort whereby we are all learning about impact investing. And really, again, just supporting each other as we think about our finances and how do we do things differently. So again, finding that community of people who support whatever it is that you're doing.
And Susan, I'm getting a request to state those names again. So did you say Impact for Better?
Invest for Better. And I have a resource slide at the end, which I know Monica and Joni will pass out. So Invest for Better is a really great network.
Okay, great. We'll look for it in the resource slide. And thank you for sharing those reflections. I agree with you. And there are so many great communities. Of course, Revel 11 is one of them too. But feel free, I'd love to hear from others in the chat, if there are groups that you've found or work that you've done that's been helpful to you related to this. Sorry, Susan, you can continue.
Yeah, that's okay. This is great. This is really great. As I mentioned, you can actually align your purpose and your finances. This is a tool to look at and think about. It's called the Impact Investing Continuum. And what really I've learned through kind of my experience is that if we want a better world, we really also have to invest in a better world. I'm a firm believer that business can be a force for good. And I've observed it through the work with Green Canopy. And I've seeing how investors who have invested alongside their values, how that brings them joy and creates further alignment for them. I want to share this with you all because investing doesn't have to be intimidated. There are lots of ways to empower yourself and ensure alignment. You can work with an advisor to walk through these opportunities. The Invest for Better cohort is another example of a group that you could work with. But just to give you kind of a quick overview of what this is that, so this is what's called the Impact Investing Continuum. And most people really think about investing on kind of the far left side or the far right side. So they invest into the market, the stock market, or they give through their philanthropy. Fortunately, there's this really fun, lots of fun opportunities within the middle where, again, you can really focus on aligning your purpose. Over the course of the years, ESG has been an opportunity where you see a lot of opportunities to invest through the stock market into environmental, social, and governance companies. Those are folks that manage for those particular risks. When you look at the one where it says responsible impact, actually, I don't know why it's called responsible impact investing. I would say it's ESG with a negative screen. Those are screening out some negative things like tobacco, alcohol, weapons, etc. Then there's an ESG opportunity where you can screen in for things where companies that are really specifically looking at their carbon footprint, waste reduction, etc. And then there's this whole other area, which I'm sorry, I wish I circled for you all. It's called Thematic Impact Investing and Impact First Investing, whereby, shifting outside of the stock market, you can actually find fund opportunities and private investment opportunities whereby you can actually not just focus on doing less bad for the world, but actually you can focus on doing good for the world. And so the thematic impact investing, housing is included in that, climate, the focus on climate change, there are aspects there. Impact first investing oftentimes are making investments into earlier stage companies. So oftentimes it's considered higher risk, or perhaps the returns are lower than what you might see on some of these other opportunities. So they consider it a little bit higher risk. A lot of those opportunities are opened for accredited investors, but it's actually really neat because I've been seeing a lot more retail opportunities for folks who do not have the kind of wealth as of accredited investors. I'll have to add those into the resource pages because I couldn't find them right before we connected. But again, there are a lot of opportunities, I think, for folks to think about that. And then, of course, philanthropy. Another just thing to think about too is, who do you bank with? When you think about what your money is doing at night, it's important to think about who you bank with. And there are a lot of financial institutions that are not doing great things with their money. And then there are some that are actually doing better for your, with your capital during the day. So, Beneficial State Bank, actually they're local, they're actually down in California, but they're also up in the Seattle area. They really take a bottom line approach. Their focus is on doing no harm. And during the day, their money is invested in our community. It's invested in affordable housing, social justice, education, youth development. But there is a link at the bottom of that slide where you too can find a bank that is in your community that also supports those things. Finally, this is one aspect that is, a bit of a bear, because I realized that living at home, we're all home, and there's so much here. There's so much here that I could talk about. And really, I realized that I can't talk about everything within the home. And so I really started to focus on the two lenses that I think I feel like I can share a little bit of an extra extra lens to. I know, and that is really health and wellness and sustainability. Of course, there are many components that are missing from this conversation, which is simply getting outside, nutrition, etc. But I'll just focus on the health and wellness. So thinking about how do you live at home with purpose and intentionality. And I just want to say that really there's more to home than four walls and a roof. As I mentioned before, homes are the nexus of our lives. And you all know this to be true, is that we spend at least 90% of our time indoors. I would say with COVID, we're probably spending, oh my gosh, so much more time than 90% of our time. So actually, before I go into these items, maybe I'll just tell a little story, simply in that we bought our home about 5 or so, 6 years ago. And it was a rental home. It's a massive opportunity for us to remodel it, but we have just been busy with work. We haven't gotten around to it. And as I've been at Green Canopy, learning about all of the great opportunities by which we should be thinking about how to create greater health and wellness within our homes, and then also learning about how to make our homes sustainable, it was really hard not to actually go through the process of remodeling. So I spent most of my time thinking about nutrition, thinking about how can I eat well, again, thinking about Bea Johnson's focused on the zero waste home. How do I, just bring less stuff into the house, focusing on her 5, actually, I've got it here now, it's refusing, reducing, reusing, recycling, and then whatever's left finally gets rotted. But through, over the course of the last few years, we finally have been kind of getting to the point where we're now have been focusing on remodeling on home with health and wellness in mind, as well as sustainability in mind. First things first for us, what was really important, given our purpose, is getting off fossil fuels. So we shifted to all electric. We shifted our gas furnace and our stove to a electric heat pump, electric water heater, and then also an induction range. And now we're actually going through the process of remodeling the home to, again, align to our values. So I'm sorry if you hear any noise in the background, that's what actually it is. So just thinking quickly about just some elements for you to think about in your home as you think about, living at your home with purpose. Mold and moisture are common triggers for allergies and rashes. So some things to think about for eliminating moisture within your home is, running fans in your bathroom, using a dehumidifier. For us at Green Canopy, if you're ever considering remodeling your home, definitely look at our website. We use a blue skin technology, but that's not available to everybody if you are already living in your home. Air quality is also another important aspect. Again, as we're on the West Coast, so we end up in our homes with during wildfire season, and during wildfire season in our leaky home, it was horrible. It was just really hard. There were days when it was really hard to actually breathe in our home. So indoor air quality is something that's extremely important. At Green Canopy, we put in really energy efficient air systems called energy recovery ventilators. They really bring fresh air in, and they filter that air and bring that into the home, and then also release the stale air out of the home. But some things for you to think about too would be, just looking at the MERV rating of your furnace, changing out that filter on a regular basis.
And Susan, just
Yeah.
to let you know, we have a few minutes left. I know this is an area where you have lots of information.
I'm going to fly through this fast because I don't actually have a lot. The other aspect, thank you for letting me know, the other aspect is just reducing exposure to toxins. So many of you might be doing remodels in your home right now. So looking at no VOC paints, As I mentioned, gas appliances, the other important aspect of that transition to all electric is that gas appliances, they release toxins into your environment, into your indoor environment. So running your fan is your exhaust fan when you're using that is extremely important. And then I am going to go through this quick because I wanted to share these things because these are important aspects that I've integrated into our home. But there's lots of resources at the end that you can explore as well. The built environment, as I said before, it's responsible for 40% of our global carbon emissions. So we all can do our part in this regard, and focus on some energy efficiency, whether it be changing out what is currently in the house to more energy efficient appliances, to LED light bulbs. In our remodel, I will say that our house really, it's fascinating. It leaks like a sieve. And now I really understand why the built environment's responsible for 40% of the global carbon emissions. It's massive. And every month we have been spending just a ton on our electricity bills and our gas bills. So I'm really looking forward to kind of changing that aspect of it. Energy monitoring, just something that you should be aware of. There is a sense monitoring system that you can use to actually monitor your energy usage throughout the house, to just determine, are there places where you're really surging and using more electricity than others? And then finally, on the sustainable products, this gets to, I think, what Monica and I were chatting about before is, can you bring in sustainability into your home? And you can do that through some of the products and materials that you're using. Healthy Building Networks is a resource that I include at the end. That is a great place to go if you are ever doing remodeling, for you to select materials that are less toxic to your health and more sustainable. And then on the furniture side, actually, that's been another interesting journey. Sorry. The furniture and buying, Monica, I don't know in your experience, but I tell you what, it is so hard to find sustainable products out there in the world. If there is someone who wants to create an Amazon for sustainable products like furniture, I am all in it, because there's no one site to look for it. It's all over the place and it's really expensive. So I will say that is a huge consideration for people to think about, because you can create a net zero energy home, highly healthy, highly sustainable home, and then put in crappy furniture. So just something to think about.
Bettina, who was on a few months ago talking about hacking zero waste, talked about how she bought all secondhand furniture, because that's another form of sustainability. And there really is a lot of beautiful secondhand furniture. We've got one question and then we need to wrap. But Lisa asked, we're about to re-roof our house. Curious about the top things I should be thinking about for products. Do you have a recommendation, or would you want us to follow up?
I think that you can follow up. I bet also the Healthy Building Network has a lot of great resources there as well.